Okay, new recording. Bringing my face a little closer to the camera, or rather, zoom in the camera in a little more. Let's see if this makes a difference. Basically, whenever I hear people talking about Elden Ring, they're always saying how magic is like easy mode. It's the way you go through the game. If you are having trouble, you use magic. For a long time, I was a magic user as well. My main build was like a sorcery build with Health and Steeple, or one of those great swords that scale with intelligence. And I had a lot of fun. Magic's a lot of fun. But recently I switched to melee only, and now like that I'm playing with melee only, it's apparent to me that actually melee is just better. And I don't mean just more fun. I do think it's more fun, especially if you're bossing, but it's actually better. Like there's benefits to it that magic doesn't have, and I think people will perform better using melee builds versus magic builds, contrary to everything that everyone's saying about, magic is for losers and magic is this and that. I think it's actually harder to use magic. The exception being, of course, that if you use a spirit ash, like a mimic tier or whatever, then that spirit ash is going to bait for you, and that's going to make using magic easier. In that case, I would agree that magic is definitely easy mode. But assuming you're not using a spirit ash, I think it's actually harder. And I have at least 4 reasons why. First reason is that when you're running a magic build, you're going to have to split your flasks. So if you have 14 flasks max, then with magic, you're not going to be able to use all 14 for health pots. You're going to have to use some, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 on mana pots. And this makes you less resilient. This means you have less mistakes to make. If you make a mistake, you have less pots to use. So straight up, like just being a magic user, you have a disadvantage right there of having less HP pots. Next reason I think is really underestimated is that when you're doing melee, and this is what I realized as I've been switching to melee, is that you learn the boss moves a lot quicker. When you're using magic, you're like constantly, your plan is basically to run away and shoot from afar, and you're just continuously dodging backwards. But when you're in melee, you have to know the moveset, you have to know the openings, you have to know everything. So you actually learn the moveset better, and when you know the moveset better, you're going to perform better quicker, more quickly. You'll do more damage, you'll know the pockets, everything will be better that way. Easier, even. Like once you know the moveset, it's less intimidating, you know. With magic, you might get there eventually, but it's way harder. And at that point, if you're dodging in melee range and using magic spells, you're basically melee. Another one, which is pretty obvious, is that if you're doing melee, you don't have to put as many points into mind. Obviously, this can vary from build to build. If your Ash of War requires a lot of, mana, then maybe you do. But generally speaking, if you're not using magic, you're going to be using a lot less mana, and all those points can go into your other weapon stat, whether it's Dex, Faith, Strength, whatever. Like, doesn't matter. You have more points, your character will become stronger. It's just a clear, obvious benefit. Last reason, pretty simple reason in my opinion, is that when you're with a mage, like when you're using magic, your main strategy is like to run away. It's like a runaway mentality, which that is a strategy, but it also, like, something about it makes you flinch more. It makes you more scared to be in melee range. Like if you get into melee range, you start panicking more easily. So that makes you worse. Like if you're already used to being in melee range and that's where your bread and butter, like with melee, then of course you're gonna be doing better there. You're not gonna feel as panicky, and you're not gonna flinch. But if you're a mage and you're constantly running away for distance, whenever they get close, the boss or even a strong enemy, like you're gonna start flinching and panicking until you've done that enough times, So yeah, those are some pretty clear reasons in my mind, 4 reasons as to why I think like melee is just objectively better. you know, at least against bosses, like against mobs, I can see magic being better. It's easier to chip off at multiple enemies at once and from distance. And but against bosses, those four reasons to me and my experience, have playing both magic and melee, melee is just better. Unless you're using a Spirit Ash, in which case magic is probably better. But yeah, that's about it. See ya.